in Torah, but we haven't really delved into it. So we will start. We're on page Chavov. We will start from the line that begins Ahelam. That's a quarter down the page, but we'll go through quickly because part of it you already learned. The line begins Ahelam Ha'atzmi. So we discussed, I think, extensively a principle that there could be the similar inyan at two different presentations, two different locations, and two different levels, you could say, in the essential level and then in the gilu level, like chokhmah and atik and oinek. Even though they're identical things, and yet in chokhmah there is a means by which you can relate to it, whereas in atik there is no ways to relate to it. Same thing we said about das and keser, and this is the principle of memutza. Mutza is that which incorporates both sides of this reality. And coming back to Torah, that Torah is called the Mutza, and this is where we're going to get into it now. The line begins Ahelam Ha'atzmi. It's approximately 10 lines from the top.
What page?
Chav Vav. It's known that the Torah is a memutza, is an intermediary, which means it connects between Ein Sof and Neshamas Yisrael. Between the Ein Sof and Neshamas Yisrael. The class Kishim is Kashro and Dobedot. This is the expression of the Zohar. There are three things that are tied one to the other. Yisrael ve'Raisa v'Kutshabriyo. Yisrael and Torah and Kutshabriyo. And how is Torah a memutza? And that is Lefi Shabbat Torah Yesh Bo Mebechinas Atzmus Ein Sof. Because in the Torah, even though Torah, as we said, is Mechochmo Nafkos, Torah is in of Chochmo, but Yesh Bo, there is also within the Torah Mebechinas Atzmus Ein Sof, from the beginning of Atzmus Ein Sof itself, which means the way the Inyan Atzmus Ein Sof is within itself, not as it is Nimshach in Chochmah. They say he memutza, and thereby becomes memutza. Okmei Shekosov. And as it says, Oy te oir kasalmo, he spreads light like a garment. Sheyesh ba Torah beis madreges, that in Torah there are these two madreges, oir v'salmo. The salmo hu bechines chitzonius ha-Torah. Salmo is that which goes into the category of being chitzonius. We'll discuss it in a moment. Chitzonius ha-Torah. Ayin bechines chochmas ha-Torah, which is the aspect of chochma Torah, shebo b'yislapsus be'aloches gashmi. And chochmas ha-Torah has the capacity of being contained in halaches gashmi. Halaches that define gashmi's situations. Or bechinas oir, and then there is also the bechina of oir in Torah, light. Whole bechinas pnimius ha-Torah, which is the pnimius of Torah. Hainu bechinas atzmas ein soif shebechochmas ha-Torah, which is the etzem of ein soif shebechochmas ha-Torah. One more line. Ve'ali deizeh HaTorah hi memutza. As a result of that, and because of these two qualities in Torah, the Torah is a memutza, which has the effect of lakasha and neshamas Yisrael be'atmas and Yisrael baruch, to actually bind neshamas with atmas and Yisrael. So we have to understand that the principle of the mamutza is not merely like you take from one and bring to the other, like a bridge. You pick up from one side of the river and carry it on the other side. If you carry it on the other side, then it is on the other side. It's no longer on the original side. This is just a means of obtaining the information, obtaining the inyan. Memutza means that there is an actual connection to the source, to the original state. And this is what we're saying, that Torah itself, even though as we are looking, we're seeing it kasam, we say it like chokhmah, because Torah actually relates to halachis. So we have to step back a little bit and just review what we already discussed about this. And then we will see how this is and the principle of the Mutza. We have many mishalim that illustrate two phases, two levels: the essential level and the functional level. Like one that is a very good way of relating to it, if we focus in on it, is the principle that we discussed. This is but the muscle that you used last time, that the Gemara says, "Odom she'eloi bayis einoi odom." That a person who doesn't have a house, a home, a place in the world where he belongs, and this is, so to speak, his, not on the basis of anyone's favors. He is not a guest. He belongs in Hashem's world. This means he has a place. Einoi bayis einoi odom.
It's the same if he's renting or owns.
What? If you're renting, it's the same thing. Einoi odom. It's not an odom. Shmita is not an odom, so we discussed this. There is a fundamental difference between the human being and the animal, a havi. The animal is totally functional dependent. It needs food, it even needs shelter, but it needs the functional aspect of shelter, the functional aspect of food. The Gemara says, for example, that an oni, the poor that journeys from one place to the other, and we are obligated to give him supplies as he enters, comes into our midst, and then he leaves. So the halacha is that you have to give him his meal for the place, for the time that he is staying by you, and then you have to give him an extra meal that he should have with him in his baggage, in the salad, pas b'salad. Even though that he expects to be in the next village by supper time, nevertheless you have to fill his basket, because one who has a pas b'salad, he has a piece of bread with him, or he doesn't. What's the difference? He's not going to eat it until supper. difference is that when he doesn't have a basis for his presence in the world. His basis, his place, and his presence is precarious. When he has it, he has a certain security, a certain sense of calm. What is the sense of calm? Where does that come from? It comes from the fact that the human being, to begin with, in his creation, he has, as we mentioned many times, he has the function of being koivish the world. He is not a sojourner, a visitor over here. If he is just a visitor, he is out of place. He belongs where he is. Like you mentioned it many times, that if you venture into a simcha, into a chasana, there's a tremendous difference between whether you're invited or not invited. If you're invited, you feel you belong there, you're a human being. If you're not invited, you're just an observer. You're not for real. Even though you're saying the same thing. That's what a human being. Human being is an invited presence in the world. And that is a primary state of the human being. Now, so the person has a home. He has a place. What happens in this place? Then, what happens in this place is that then he furnishes this place. He puts in tables and chairs. He develops it to its full functionality. Even to the extent that it's possible to misunderstand and to say the reason he needs a home is in order for the functionality purposes. There's a place where to eat, a place where to sleep. But we explained that's not the case. Because even if you were to sleep in the most comfortable hotel and eat in the best restaurants, it doesn't substitute a home. Although a home is ultimately translated on a functional level. And then, when he sits in his own home and eats, he's just eating the same way as you're eating in a restaurant. It's a different experience. The principle of the home permeates all activities that take place in the home. When he eats at his own table, it's only eating, and you can eat elsewhere. But it's a different eating. And here he's eating in a place where he belongs. So this principle, the essential principle that has no definition, Ayin Beis, he has to have a place in the world. So that's an undefined reality. That reality percolates throughout all activities in the home. Like we explained, the sense that he has in the home is that if he takes off his shoes and puts them down, they're going to stay put there. They're going to be there. So this illustrates to us the principle of the essential as it is experienced and the most functional. These are the two inyanim that one points out about in Torah. In Torah there is the oir and there is a psalm. There is the chokhmah. The chokhmah is mislabesh in halachas. Chokhmah is that which gives us direction how we should behave. So you would think that this is just the functional aspect of a human being. He has to know how to behave. So we said no. This chokhmah of Torah that is mislavish in halacha is fully representative and contains the initial truth of it being oyer and safe. And every halacha in the Torah, no matter how small and trivial, seemingly, is a fully representative to the full depth of the initial union of Torah that this is oyer and safe. There's the infinite godly quality in every part of it. And we illustrated this multiple times in various things. The one that comes to mind right now is the principle of witnesses. An amazing thing. Two witnesses have the power to establish a fact. You would think that it's based on functionality. All right, two witnesses corroborate the same story. It must be true. So therefore you decide that it's true because on the basis that they're two witnesses. Not so. It's a koyach of two witnesses that the Torah bestows upon them. How do we see? Because 100 witnesses will come and contradict them, nothing's going to happen. It's an amazing thing. And not only that, as we illustrate that in the case of witnesses, there are mamish phenomenal nuances that's impossible to put into some kind of a logical perspective. Like Pargina Dibure, I mentioned to you, right? Pargina Dibure, we split his words. We take some words from the witness and we accept them, that which is acceptable, and that which he has no power to testify, we don't accept. And therefore his testimony is like split in the middle. It doesn't have a total, a congruent statement. Something happened, and this happening has to have two people. This person did this to this person. He has the power to testify for half of it, doesn't have the power to testify for the other half. So we know that this happened to this person. That this was done to this person by this person we don't have. And we accept that testimony. It has no functional explanation. This is the koyach that's above chokhmah, that is contained in the Torah, and it trickles down in the chokhmah. I'm not going into the details because we already discussed it recently many times. Okay, so
Rabbi Paltiel?
Yeah.
Maybe you mentioned this before, or maybe it's not relevant. So now we're talking about how Torah is a mamutza between the Eibishter and Yidden and the Shamas Yisrael. And before we were talking about the mamutza between how Chokhmah is a mamutza between Kesser and more than Kesser. Do these Mashalim have exact correspondences, or the Kesser Mashal was just a Mashal to get us thinking about Mamutza?
I don't know what
Is there a correspondence in the Nimshal of
there's correspondence that Kesser is reflected in Chokhmah. The point.
I'm asking.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you asking? What's the question?
I'm asking in the Nimshal we're now talking about Kudsha Baricha, Oraisa, and Neshamas Yisrael. So Oraisa the mamutza, and is this corresponding to the levels we were speaking about before in terms of Keser, Atik, Pnimius Atik, Sinius Atik, and Chochmah? Is there a direct correspondence here, or these are
There is a direct, I don't know what bothers you, direct correspondence, and actually goes higher and higher. As we said, that this is even in Atmos itself, even beyond Atik. Torah is actually rooted in Atmos itself. The important point of the Moshel, please understand, the important point of the Moshel is that we should understand how there could be the same meaning at two different levels, and even though they are the same meaning, they're on two different levels, and even though they're the same at two different levels, they're the same meaning. That's a difficulty to understand over here.
And how do we get from that to the discussion now?
Let's leave that, Baruch. This is not the point. The difficulty here to understand how Torah connects you to Atzmos. But Torah is Chochmah. How is Chochmah Atzmos? The point is that it connects to Atzmos itself. But that's not, but then he translated the Chochmah, so he gives you Chochmah, no. The Chochmah connects you to Atzmos itself. That's why it's called the Mamutza.
Okay.
And so then the last line we read, thereby, ha-Torah hi memutza. The Torah is an actual intermediary. Lekasher, to tie, not to bring Elokus into the world, but to actually bind up and tie it up. The Shomer Yisrael be'atmos is so important. So this is how we have discussed it over here at the Moshel from Atik and Chochmah. But Ukmoi came, and the similar Inyan who b'shoira shorishain. B'shoira shorishain, in the original source, the original in inception of Torah. The ha-Torah k'moi shehi b'bchinas Chochmah ha'gduma. This is, we spoke about here, the Torah as it came down, comes down here, lemato, b'yislapshus in halachas gashmim. And in halachas gashmim, there is Atmos Ein Sof. And this is how it's mekasher Neshamas Yisrael to Atmos Ein Sof. The same is true in Moshe Shorishin. That Torah k'meishi here b'chinas Chochmah ha'gduma. The way the Torah is, all the way to Chochmah Agduma. Chochmah Agduma means the Chochmah in its inception, which means the Chochmah not in the state where Chochmah is a Hamashach, that it comes to be, but it's Kduma. Kduma means it's there in the original reality. Kduma means it was not created. It is a kodum. It is prior to creation. So there is the Inyan Chochmah Hagduma, and Torah is rooted in this Chochmah Hagduma. Eraisa me Chochmah Nafkos. So even there, Harei hi bibchinas mamutza. So there, the Torah has the quality of a mamutza. Lekasher Neshamas Yisrael b'bechinas Atzmos Mamosh, in the bechina of Atzmos Mamosh. I'm afraid to get into explain, because then we're going to have questions, and can never get out. We have pointed out the word Bechina has a very subtle significance in its usage. There's a meaning why we use the word Bechina. Like we say that in Keser has the Bechina of Atzmus. But Keser is already after the Tzimtzum. Osmiti has a Bechina of Atzmus. The word Bechina, as we explained, means it has that quality, but it has that quality in a very subtle manner. So that if you focus in, Bechina means you test it. If you really focus in and try to get a grasp, a real glance at what this stands for, you will recognize that this is that this is an Indian of Etzem. What is Etzem? Etzem means that this is not something that comes to expression, but it is the essential truth in itself. Like the Rambam says, the first principle is to know that there's a first being. Motzer Rishon. Where does Motzer Rishon come from? What's the principle of Motzer Rishon? We have no way to understand. If the Seichel doesn't, the Seichel can only relate to something that comes into being, something that is a truth in itself. The Seichel has no access to it. But we have to know that there is a Motzer Rishon. This Motzer Rishon defies identity, defies being grasped and understood. This is what you call Bechinas Etzem. It's a truth. It is there because of its truth, not because it came into being. So this Bechinas Atzmus, we speak about it in many different levels. We talk about Keser, this Bechinas Etzem. And now we're going to be saying that the same thing is B'chom HaKduma. Kduma means that this is not Hamshach. There was no, it didn't come to be. Kduma means pristine. It was always there. In Atzmus, there is a Yachach. It's called Chochmah Geduma. And there, the Torah is rooted in this Chochmah Geduma. As a result of that, Torah is there also a Mamutza. And it connects Shomes with Atzmus and Sof, with Bechinas Atzmus and Sof, Mamosh. The way Atzmus is in Keser, this is Bechinas Atzmus. Relative to Atzilus, this is Etzem. Whereas we're talking about Atzmus Mamosh, we're talking about Atzmus before the Tzimtzum, Atzmus in the Atzmus, the initial, the original truth itself. The original truth itself is also connected through Torah. In other words, when we look at Torah, and we say, the Torah says, Lo yisig zol. So we say like this. What is this mitzvah? Where is this mitzvah Lo yisig zol come from? It's a reaction. It's a reaction to reality of the world. In the world, Gzeila is possible. So Torah says, but don't Lo yisig zol. It's so to speak. The result of the practical living. That's the way one would think. The Torah says, don't yes, you have a possibility to take somebody else's property, don't do it. But the mitzvah, the name for Lois Yisrael, exists all the way in Chochmah HaGedumah. But there is no enticement to take somebody else's property.
Yeah, what exists there? Gneva exists there?
Gneva in the proper...
The Lo Tigzol is there too.
Right, Lois Yisrael is
Even though
there.
there's no possibility of theft.
Right, it's not a reaction to protect society from eating each other up alive, right? There's a reality to it.
It's nothing circumstantial, but there's reality.
Mhm.
Fine. Don't know what that means exactly.
Right, we don't know what that means. And Torah is present at that level. This is the point. Torah, Chochmah HaGedumah.
So what the diok here is, before we had that Etzem Ein Sof comes down into Torah that has sort of practical application. Now we're saying that this halacha that seems practical down here is even more primal, is by Chochmah HaGedumah. It's in primal Chochmah.
Just as we explained over here, that when the Torah says Lo Yisrael, it is not merely a conventional thing to protect peace among neighbors. There is a principle, a godly principle in this. And this is where Torah, we say Torah connects you to Ayin Sof, to Ayin Sof. The same, but on an infinitely greater, higher level, it is present, so to speak, in Chochmah HaGedumah.
This halacha is present.
The Torah. The Torah is present in Chochmah HaGedumah. And in Chochmah HaGedumah, the truth is that even here it is not just a response to a circumstance. This is what we're talking all the time. Except it's applicable to circumstances. It's possible to explain it, to understand it, to have a, so to speak, some kind of a understanding of it. But really, it is not at all a response to a circumstance. Like we illustrated with witnesses and all that.
Right. The second level is more wondrous.
The second level is not right. This is so we're saying Torah in Chochmah HaGedumah. There is Torah in Chochmah HaGedumah, and there Torah connects. Torah contains this connection between Atmos in Sof Mamosh and Chochmah HaGedumah. The initial principle, again, I said I hesitate to open up, to start talking about things and then we start questioning. Try to understand and focus in, and that will be it. Why do we speak in terms of Chochmah HaGedumah? So we explained that an atzmi, like we have in our world, we have a rock. A rock is called an atzmi because it has no connection. It is out to itself. It is, so to speak, a reality unto itself. But this is a far mashal of a atzmi, only in one sense. Because really the rock is not only not an atom, it's not an entity. It doesn't even know of its own existence. The first principle of an existence is that it's aware of itself. And it stands for something. Like the Rambam says, Amit is imotzi. If it doesn't have emes, it doesn't have a sense of what it is, then it's not an entity. This one says that in Atzmus there is only knowing there is. What mean there is? Because Atzmus represents the ultimate truth of everything. In Atzmus, as they're going to learn there is everything, and there is nothing. Because it's not there because it was acquired, but it is there because of the essential truth of it itself. So this is why they're saying that in Atzmus there is Chochmah Hagduma. And this Chochmah Hagduma is the original source of Torah. Sheresh Orish. Because Torah represents the expression of Chochmah. And in there, Torah contains this dual identity. On the one hand, it is actually representative of Atzmus and Sof, Mamush. On the other hand, it comes to Chochmah. And thereby it makes this connection between Chochmah and Atzmus and Sof. The Shomish Yisrael and Atzmus and Sof. Yeah.
Do you hear my question?
What?
Sorry, I'd ask you a question. I guess I had it on mute. Why are you equating Yeshamas Yisrael with Chochmah Hakduma? Or are you?
No, we're not.
Oh, yeah.
Did you hear my preamble?
It's not so.
Was I on mute? I don't think I was on mute. I really don't want to go into this any deeper. I only wanted that we should understand what we should understand. We should have at least an insight. Why we speak in terms of Chochmah Hagdum. Bayas Chochmah is a means to an end. Just like we say, Bayas Torah is a means to an end, to preserve peace in the world. The Rambam says, "L'nitu Torah l'ha'elas shalom ba'olam." And here we're talking on an essential level. We're going into the parentheses. Elsewhere it is explained that Torah Hagduma, he memutza, it provides this memutza liz hagiluyim hashayochim le'elamis, to provide for the possibility that there will be giluyim that can relate to world.
Excuse me, the term Torah here is synonymous to Chochmah, like when you say
Right.
It's the same thing.
Torah comes right. Well, Torah, Chochmah is the source of Torah. Torah is Heirah. Torah is Giluyim from Chochmah. So he said, Torah Hagduma is memutza li is hagiluyim ashayochim le'omis, to bring about that there should be giluyim that can relate to worlds. V'hainu, and that is a memutza, a connected ben horotzin hamuchla be'atzmusay, uvein bechinas horotzin hakloli lo'ilus. Rotzen HaMuchot, to translate, Rotzen HaMuchot be'atzmusim means the fundamental rotzen in Atzmus. Muchlot. The word muchlot means unquestioned. Muchlot means it is fundamental, and there is no normally in our expression, in our experience, rotzen is the result of some kind of experience, some kind of a consideration, and afterwards it comes to a rotzen where I decided this is what I want. Rotzen has an element of decision. The rotzen, the true rotzen, also has an element of decision. But that decision does not go through the doubt question. There's a muchlot element, an essential truth in it. The reason we're going into this, and the reason it's mentioned in Chassidus, like it says, Pnimius is Pnimius Atera, this is Atzmus. The ultimate significance, meaning to us, in these terms, Rotzen HaMuchlot, in all of these higher levels, is to ultimately be able to recognize this principle that we're learning this whole time, just today, that there is a fundamental truth in existence. It is not a circumstantial response to something. There's a Rotzen HaMuchel in Ein Sof to create a world. Then there should be a Torah, the Shomas Yisrael. This is a fundamental truth in Holocaust. Like we said the other day, we discussed it over this year many times. What would be if the world should cease to exist? On a moment, in an instant. And there is no destruction, and there is no suffering, and nothing. It just ceases to exist. Would we relate to this thought as a tragedy? Or would we say, hey, if nobody suffered, nothing happened? All thing in the world is a pursuit that we should have comfort, we should be able to, we should have our lunch in time, we should have our supper in time, we should have a comfortable bed. We should not suffer. So here, this is the answer to the whole problem. Poof. No suffering. This is an important question because of the mentality we are exposed to. But there is no muchlot, there is no fundamental reality. It is all a response, it's under circumstances. You happen to be here, might as well be comfortable. So we have to understand that in Atzmus Ein Sof, Atzmus Ein Sof is Etzem, and is totally perfect and is totally not in need of anything. That Atzmus Ein Sof, not in need of anything, means what? That it's totally oblivious of everything, and there is no true statement as to what it is. There is. It's called Rotzen HaMuchlat. Muchlat. This is a fundamental truth about this, what it wants. And the entire existence of the creation. And Torah, which is the Torah and Yisrael, which is the essential element in that. This is a fundamental truth. Muchlat means decided upon. Decided. This again is a very subtle Indian, which I'd like we should at least begin to think about this. Muchlat means decided. Decided means what? That there was a decision process. But this is an initial rotzen which didn't go through the process of deciding.
It's decisive with no decision.
And if it isn't, so, okay, but rotzen by definition, this is the difference between rotzen and oinek. Oinek is an internal process, an internal thing. But rotzen means that there is some kind of a definition of what he wants, which has to have the process of hachlot, of decision.
It's similar to what Kaduma?
Huh?
Is it the same like Kaduma?
So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Okay. Let's. Rotzen hamuchlat. Hamuchlat means that it was decided. If it's decided and it is, so to speak, set, it's finished, it's set in its essence. Anything that goes through the process of decision doesn't never become an essence.
Never becomes what?
An essence, right? There is a possibility of otherwise. So that means already that it's not essential. Here we're saying that this is a rotzen hamuchlot, and the term rotzen by definition has to have this element of decision behind it, because that's what rotzen means. Rotzen is an active pursuit. Therefore, there has to be the union of decision behind it, and the other. But and yet, this is a rotzen that is decided before the question even comes up. That's rotzen hamuchlat. So this is the true rotzen between Atzmas and Yisuf.
It's decided, but it's not really decided because that didn't go through a process of deciding.
Didn't go through a process, right?
And we call it decided because it's an active pursuit.
Because it's rotzen.
I'm a little confused because I thought whenever we speak about Ratzin, we always distinguish it from kind of the more worldly view. We always say that Ratzin is not a response. The Ratzin, the Emser Ratzin of the Nefesh is not a response to something lacking. The Ratzin is the result of the recognition of Emes. It's not because I want it and I don't have it. It's a recognition that it's true and it's there, and therefore it's something which is fit to be a part of. So how do we distinguish between Ratzin and Muchlat and Ratzin and Klali AyinBase when neither is determined by a lacking? They're both coming. You would think that they're both coming from the same place.
All right. Let's leave questions on for the moment.
Is it correct to say that the Ratzin is just a translation of the Atzmas? That's how it is, and it's been translated to the Ratzin.
What? The first thing, and this is the reason I got into this, because this is an endless process. Just that we should sense what is the meaning of rotzen within Atzmus. What is the meaning of oinek within Atzmus? So this is really beyond the whole grasp of faith. But the important thing about this is to understand that the truth of our own existence, the truth of Torah and mitzvahs, and how do we? What is our approach? What understanding can we have in this? is what's called the initial rotze. Now, is somebody not muted? Somebody's phone is not muted, please. Unless it's my phone, doesn't make a noise. We spoke about this in the human experience, in human terms. It says, "Kol davar roitze b'kiyum," that there is an initial rotzin in everything. It's called roitze b'kiyumoi. Everything wants to persist in its existence. This roitze b'kiyumoi, I explained that there is significance in this rotzin. Why does he want to persist in its existence? Because in this existence there is the godly will for his presence. He wants to be what he is. Because this is the means through which he recognizes the godliness in his own existence. That's what B'kiyumah. The Rebbe wanted him to be a human being, and he wants to be a human being. Why does he want to be a being? Because that's where he senses the godly truth, only through being through the human qualities. So this is an essential truth, and yet we call it a roitze. He wants. This means he wants. He is a human being. He's a human being. So what extent he wants to be a human being? In this being a human being, being a human being is not a default, is not an insensitive element. It's a reality which expresses himself that he wants like to be what he is.
It's not a default, it's a reality.
And the one way to put it, so to speak, to the test. Again, these are extremely subtle, fine things, and we have to try to get the Nakuda. One way to test it is the following. Like exactly we saw if the world should cease to exist. A person is always, I would say, constantly preoccupied with interests, things that are needs or whatever his interests. What if you propose to him? Cease to be, and you won't have to be worrying about your needs. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He wants to be what he is. That's the first thing. This is the true significance of being. You have to understand this is being which God creates, a being that's not there by default, like by what's called an explosion, by Big Bang. This is a godly creation. There's a godly truth in it. And this godly truth is this. Everything that it represents the fact that there is a first being. The first being means that there is a truth to its being, and he wants to be what he is. Forget about taking away all the problems. The problems of this is periphery. The first thing, he wants to be what he is. We explained that in this sense that he wants to be what he is, because there's a sense that through this This, what he is, this is what connects him to the true being, to the godly being. And the godly being, this is an absolute truth. He would not let go of that for nothing. The godly being is such that he is ready to give his life for this, his conscious life. This is a being that transcends all experience.
It's not wanting out of lacking.
Not one. This is the point which I want that we should sense a little bit. Please, just a little nakuda. That there is such a thing, that truth, a true being means it has a rotzen. It stands for what it is. And this is Atzmus, there is a rotzen hamuchlot. Rotzen hamuchlot, to say this is the rotzen hamuchlot. This is Mam is the rotzen of Atzmus. Atzmus wants to be Atzmus. And this rotzen hamuchlot is then afterwards nimshach in rotzen aloylamus, rotzen kloli aloylamus. Closed case, gentlemen.
Why do we have to say that it's a Islam Echad? Why can't it be based on what you
I said, end of discussion. Right now, this is the. We had an opportunity. I just wanted we should have an akuda. Every time we touch upon these things, I want to go a step a little deeper. This is the extent to which we can go now. Just want that we should understand that true being means that he wants to be what he is.
And it's not default.
It's not default, and that's not protection. It's not. He wants to be what he is, and this Rotzen Hamuchot is what translated by Torah into Rotzen Kloli Aloyos.
Torah translates
Rotzen Kloli Aloyos.
Is there another word for muchot besides decided?
The translation is what muchot. I make my hachlota. What hachlota is?
Resolution,
A
resolve.
resolution. A resolution means that you made a decision. But there's no question about it. Because you know what you want, you know what you want. You know what you want, you know what you want.
So what if the word muchot add to rotzen?
No, muchlot. There's no rotzen without a machlot. Rotzen is an active state. There's no active state without a machlot. That's why it's called rotzen muchlot.
So every Rotzen is an Islam Echad, right?
Not every rotzen. Rotzen, there's a rotzen that can still be questioned. Not rotzen muchlot. It's not representative of the whole being.
So this is a rotzen hamuchot, but it isn't any process beforehand.
Can I just, we have another 5 minutes to learn. Can we learn more? Well, what happened over there?
There's a rotten hamuchlot to spread out the tablecloths and prepare for the lechai. All right, we will end now, and we will now celebrate the arrival of the new Sforim.
I didn't get your plan. I have no fans. You understand?
What?
I just was confused. That's all.